Like our content? It's funded by viewers like you. Please consider becoming a sustaining supporter of New Church Live today. Morning, friends. Pastor Chuck Blair. Wonderful to have you joining me here today. It's great to be back here at our home congregation in Bernathen, Pennsylvania after traveling, getting a chance to connect with people overseas. Wonderful to be here. If you're joining us from overseas, wonderful to have you as part of our service today as well. And just a little fun aside, I didn't know we could do this, but we had somebody from Spain ask if we could translate the sermons into Spanish. I cannot do that, but it turns out YouTube can. So again, if you're watching from a Spanish-speaking country, you're more than welcome. There's just a little button there, and you can hear the sermon in Spanish, which is kind of fun. So, friends, let's jump into today, and it's a fun service to think about. You know, this question, is life getting better? Because I would imagine if we took a poll of the congregation today, some of you would say yes, some of you would say no, some of you would say mixed. The answers would be all over the place. You know, is life actually getting better? And I'm going to ask you actually to send me your thought for today. You know, is life getting better for you today? Do you feel that way? And in what sense maybe yes, in what sense no? Because it's an important question. And with life, in times it can feel very agitated and troubled, et cetera, we have to be able to look at this and look at life maybe from the perspective God would have us hold it. And maybe just take a step back. And today, it's interesting. We're going to do that. We're going to take a step back to kind of see, is life getting better? All right, how would God kind of answer this question? And it's going to be taking a step back so we can take a step forward. A step forward into life where we're just able to go at life with a little bit more faith, a little bit more love, a little bit more compassion, a way in which we can hold the context of life a little bit better. Now, what's that context we're going to talk about today? Well, so much of the answer, is life getting better, comes down to the context that we ask that question in. And from Christian New Church perspective, life is full of these beautiful transformations. And it's not that, you know, like the chapter, each is a separate book. You think of it each as a separate chapter, but it's all part of one story, one narrative. And there's one chapter here where we start, and we're young, or you're young adults, and we're kind of in what would be called a young adult stage. In the Bible, we can look at this beautiful character called Jacob. Ancient Old Testament character, way back in the day, by the name of Jacob, this beautiful story. And the way we read stories about people like Jacob is both as a literal truth, but then also there's this beautiful poetry under it. This poetry that says something about the human condition that makes these ancient stories about people like Jacob and his brother Esau, that make these stories totally relevant to today. Dated thousands and thousands of years ago, and yet completely modern stories about life. And we're going to talk about that today. And we're going to talk about this time in life where we start here, oftentimes in our 20s, in that Jacob stage of life, and it's really important. And then we shift over to this other stage, this stage of Esau. Over here, we're really oriented towards law and truth. Over here, we're really oriented towards love. And yet, there's some fraughtness to it too. There's some tension, there's some challenge, there's some ways that it's difficult to work through this transition, because Jacob and Esau were brothers. Now, this is a little biblical history for you. Again, you don't need to understand this fully to understand the meaning of the story, but the story comes down to Esau, this one had actually been the firstborn. This one over here, Jacob had actually stolen his birthright. Huge story around that. And so with the two brothers, a stolen birthright was a big deal because you missed out on the whole inheritance because you weren't the firstborn. Because of the stealing of this birthright, there was a huge amount of animosity between these two. And today we're going to talk about that reconciliation. That time where truth has moved, and truth has moved into a place where now it's this beautiful combination with love. Reconciliation. Rejuvenation, inspiration, all of those beautiful parts of the human condition that can lead us forward and help us to move forward in our lives. So incredibly important. So as the musicians come out here for our first song, I'd love to hear from you again. I'd love to hear, as we dive into this, what do you think? Is life getting better? And you could look at it for yourself. You could look at it corporately, like, is life getting better? And you can send me a text message to 215-740-3662. And then when we come back, we're going to try to answer this question again, answering it by learning to take a step back, seeing it as God sees it, seeing it as a process that we're in the middle of, and then taking a step forward in life with that knowledge and the peace and faith that goes with it. So friends, it's great to be back. It's wonderful to have you joining us, and a big welcome. Welcome everyone to New Church Live.
Ooh, child, things are gonna get easier. Ooh, child, things will get brighter. Ooh, child, things are gonna get easier. Ooh, child, things will get brighter. Someday we'll get it together, we'll get it all done. Someday when your head is much lighter. Someday we'll walk in the rays of a beautiful sun. Someday when the world is much brighter. Ooh, child, things are gonna get easier. Ooh, child, things will get brighter. Someday we'll get it together, we'll get it all done. And someday when your head is much lighter. Someday we'll walk in the rays of a beautiful sun. Someday when the world is much brighter. Someday we'll get it together, we'll get it all done. And someday when your head is much lighter. Someday we'll walk in the rays of a beautiful sun. Someday when the world is much brighter. Ooh, child, things are gonna get easier. Ooh, child, things will get brighter.
So is life getting better? So we put the question out there. I had some answers come flying in. No, I had some answers come flying in. Yes. Welcome to today's sermon. It's a yes and a no, right? And so much of that we're going to look at today is how might we be able to have a perspective on the fact that, yeah, some days it's better, some days it's not. Some days are incredibly hard, difficult, challenging. Feels like we're walking uphill. And other days, it just flows. It's easy. And we're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about it from the point of, that is life better? Well, maybe not today, but forever. I mean, that's sort of the gist of the service. So you can keep that in the back of your mind today as we go through some different concepts here that we're going to share together. So I want to start with this idea. There's this beautiful story like these two brothers. There's this animosity because the one is sort of ripped off the other. And if you look at it in modern terms, he sort of got dad to rewrite the will and wrote his other brother out of it, even though his other brother should have been treated very differently. So life goes on. Decades later, the two brothers reconcile, Jacob and Esau. Now, Jacob comes into this journey. Obviously, he's incredibly nervous, as any of us would be, because he sort of knows what he did. He knows what he did, and he's trying to figure out a way to reconcile, and you can imagine how fraught that was. So that's where we pick up the story here. Jacob looked up, and there was his brother Esau coming with 400 men. So again, imagine your brother who you've kind of given the short end of the stick. Here you see him trooping towards you with 400 men. So he divided the children, his children, Jacob's children, among Leah, Rachel, and 2 female servants. He put the female servants and their children in front, Leah and her children next, Rachel and Joseph in the rear. He went himself on ahead and bowed down to the ground 7 times as they approached his brother. So think of these 2 masses of people coming together, and here's the brother who's really nervous, and here's the brother with 400 men, and he sort of races out front, and he's bowing down 7 times on the ground. Clear sign of submission there. But Esau, and this is where just think of the surprise, but Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arm around his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Then Esau looked up and saw the women and children. "Who are these with you?" he asked. Jacob answered, "They are the children God has graciously given your servant." Then the female servants and their children approached and bowed down. Next, Leah and her children came and bowed down. Last of all, Joseph and Rachel, and they bowed down too. Esau asked, "What's the meaning of all these flocks and herds I met?" "To find favor in your eyes, my lord," he said. And there, folks, he's trying to sort of repay his brother. He's saying, "Look, I'm bringing all these things. I'm going to give them all to you to repay you because I ripped you off," is essentially what he's saying there. But Esau said, "I already have plenty. Keep what you have for yourself." "No, please," said Jacob. "If I have found favor in your eyes, accept this gift for me." This is an incredibly beautiful line. I think one of the more beautiful lines in the Bible. "For to see your face is like seeing the face of God." And then he goes on and accepts the present. I want to read that again. "For to see your face is like seeing the face of God." Just imagine that moment. Like, here's this brother. He's sure there's going to be a big battle here. And he's trying to sort of make good because he'd done wrong. And they reunite and they cry. And here's the brother going like, the younger brother to the older brother going like to see your face is to see the face of God. Cue Les Mis, those of you who are familiar with that Broadway show. It's incredibly beautiful, friends. And that's the process we're going to talk about. And how is it that we enter this process? Understand that there's this Jacob reuniting with Esau, and that life is filled with all these different battles, all these different challenges, like for both of them, for both sides of the equation. That part of our head that's intellectual, that's deeply filled with thought, and that part that knows that heart's actually really what matters. Truth first in time. Good or love, always first in end or purpose. And all these battles and shifts. And eventually, can we see in the bigger picture them coming together? And can we see that as being the face of God in so many ways? Because this, friends, is this huge transformation. And this transformation, again, from here to here, this journey, from here to here, and it's not about throwing this away. It's about getting both to sit at the same table. And this journey, this process, this is what God is doing. We are moving from truth first in time to good first in end. I mean, this is just a little aside, a little detour. We're going to New Jersey. I'm going to go to Ohio for a second. For those of us blessed to be grandparents, I was talking about this with a friend of mine. Really, when you're a grandparent, you just want your grandkids to know that you love them. And you sort of step back and you just watch them do their thing. That's very much a love place. But thank goodness there are parents in their 20s and early 30s who make sure their kids brush their teeth. Both are true and both are coming together. And it's this Jacob-Esau part, this part that is coming together. And as it comes together, we start to understand these transformations. And read these, friends, is not this is the bad list, this is the good list. This is the list that is immature, and this is the list that has matured more. Let's take a look at this list. Transformations, mapping out this journey, reuniting looks like. We move from head to heart, from doctrine to living truth, from knowing about love to loving, from obedience to inward freedom. I really like that one, right? We have to learn to obey. We have to learn discipline. Any parent who thinks they're going to serve their kid by not having their child learn discipline and obedience is not going to serve their kid. Their kid will never find true freedom then. We have to go through this stage. Next, from fear to trust, from judging to understanding. That's a really important one. From separation to mutuality, from certainty to humility. That's another one I just want to pause on for a second. Think about how certain we are at this phase in life. We are totally certain. We know. I mean, I can remember oh so well this time period. Really, like, I didn't, probably the time of my life where I knew the most was probably 28. I knew it, including what everyone else needed to do. But over here, there's this incredible humility that happens. We know what we don't know. We know that we just know so very little. And we're just able to be humble, and we're able to keep the edges soft. And it makes life much easier because really we are able, hopefully by this stage, to just go, yeah, you get to have that opinion. It doesn't mean we don't have one. Like, humble people do have opinions. They just allow space for others to have theirs as well. From self-centeredness to use or service, from accumulation to generosity. You know, that one, how else might I say that? That's the movement from always wanting more to feeling like it's enough. From control to surrender, from isolation, individualism to community, from facts to wisdom. Those are the different transformations here, friends, and they're very, very powerful. We could do a whole series just on these transformations here. And with these transformations, friends, it's about transcend and include. Like, how do we include all these? Because it's not that they're bad. It's not that there's a bad list and a good list. It's about how do we move them forward in life. And then how do we start to understand, again, that question, coming back to the question, is life getting better? Well, this is always the transformation. And it deals with transcendence. And these things, friends, don't happen in a straight line. Could we actually flip back to the chart again? Thanks. You know, just pick any of them, right? We'll go back to from control to surrender, right? I could say that. I could just throw it out there. Hey, we shift from control to surrender. Friends, probably a lot of us have learned that lesson in an incredibly hard way. Something happened in our lives that in a million years we would never choose. Just imagine, and we have plenty of congregants who've walked this journey from control to surrender. Was it cancer that did that? Was it divorce? Was it despair or depression? Like, a lot of these times, these transitions, these transformations are incredibly difficult. There's so much in there that's really hard for us to understand. In that moment, is life getting better? But in that moment, when we see it from afar, think of that moment for a second. Step back into the perspective of eternity. And is there something on the back end of that in a sense made life better? Now, I'd be really careful. I'm so careful with that word, because sometimes people are like, well, you should be really thankful for all the challenges in your life. I don't necessarily agree with that. There are many challenges I'm not the least bit thankful for, to be honest. They were too much. I could easily skip that one. And in my mind, maybe I've learned the same lesson. So I don't want to say everything in life makes us better. I don't necessarily think so. I think there's just lots of parts that are really hard. I don't get it. But at the same time, I do know that we'll just take the certainty to humility. I do know, or control to surrender. I do know that I do have a trust, and I think we all have this. I think we all can have this trust, this basic trust that, yeah, there's this difficult thing, and here's this hard part of my life, and I've learned something of value on the other side of it. I want to say that again. I've learned something of value. Is my life better per se? Again, be careful with that language. Have you learned something of value? Yeah. Yep, definitely have learned here. So what we have to see is we have to see that it's hard to know in the moment if life is getting better. So we have to be able to see it again, that whole idea of stepping back and kind of seeing how divine providence works, how divine providence flows through our life. And that's just basics. I mean, that's basic theology that's so incredibly important. The key of it, when we step back and we kind of can take a different perspective, we can look at life from the perspective of divine providence. I want to start out with this, friends, because this is probably the most significant thing. And when I was preaching this sermon in South Africa, it was something that was, I just really wanted to come share this with a lot of conviction, because I think it's really important we remember it. It's that there's no power opposite to divine providence. Like, here's divine providence. I'm going to talk for a minute about what it's doing. Here's divine providence. There is literally no thing that is the force that opposes that. Now, of course, the obvious thing is like, yeah, but Chuck, what about the forces of evil? Yeah, they are true. They are forces of evil. But evil, in the end, is a shadow. Evil is the absence of something. There's not a diabolical force at work every day to pull your life down and make you miserable. The absence of love will make your life miserable. The absence of truth will make your life miserable. But there can be no active force, because there's only God. God is love. And again, that doesn't mean that that gets us off the hook. Like when we see evil, when we see that shadow self or that shadow parts of our world, that darkness in our world, our job is to combat it. But we combat it by bringing light. We combat it by bringing warmth and love and compassion. We combat it by bringing what is missing. And sometimes that is hard truth, granted. And it's within this context of divine providence. So what is divine providence? What is it trying to do? Very simply, divine providence, the whole point of it is a heaven from the human race. And it creates that love, creates you, creates me. That idea you're created in the image and likeness of God. That idea you are a finite form of God's love. Incredibly optimistic there. Divine providence is constantly that current that is pulling us to heaven. Now, for those of you who are swimmers, is it possible to swim against the current? Yes. Is it possible to go, I'm not going to go with the flow, I'm going to sit on the bank for a couple of years? Yes. You can do all those things, but it doesn't change the current. The current is still doing what it does. The current is still constantly pulling us. It's constantly making these transitions and these transformations in our life. Like, it's constantly pulling us in ways 99.999% of the time we're totally unaware of. And that pull, friends, is so beautiful. Because where is it going? Home. It's going home. This beautiful divine providence that works through all eternity with incredible power, just keeping things moving. Now, of course, it's easy to think of heaven and angels like won't it be wonderful, when we die, when we're finally home, when we reach this state of being an angel, won't it be great? Because then, no more problems. Not true. Not true. You are designed to walk uphill. You are designed to take on challenges. You are designed to do great things. That's how you're designed. That's how we're all created. And God's going to walk with you on that journey. And the beautiful part here, friends, as we look at that, is that journey always is going to have ups and downs to it.
And it's not that we hit heaven and all of a sudden it's a full stop and there's no more challenges. This is one that's like I could almost do a whole, week-long thing on it. I don't really understand it, but what I suspect is what I imagine to be true, and probably a lot of you have much better language than I do around this, is that, yep, it's going to go up and it's going to go down. And that up and down is what's going to always happen. It's just our perspective is what makes it better, if that makes sense. It's not better because there's an absence of problems. It's better because we have a context for those problems. I hope that makes sense. A passage from the book, Secrets of Heaven. Why do states follow one another in the heavens? Let's think of states when you hear that in New Church theology. It's the ups and downs of life. The purpose is for the angels there to constantly become more perfect because such cycles enable them to experience all the varieties of goodness and truth and to absorb them. Providence sees to it, and that's the divine providence, this great flow. Providence sees to it that nothing is ever exactly the same in either the spiritual or the physical world. So things are always becoming more perfect. Woo, that is beautiful theology. This divine providence, this flow, is going to always make sure that life has variety to it. If you've ever traveled down a river, like the landscape changes. Even the river changes. I mean, there's a beautiful old Indian saying, you never step into the same river twice. Very true. And that this variety is what makes life better. It's what somehow makes the experience of angels in heaven perfect. Because it's doop, 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 doop. And again, it's not perfect because everything, the graph is all leveled out. It's perfect because this up and down and up and down, because we come to just have perspective on it. We come to be able to really understand it. And folks, it doesn't lead, this is an aside again, it doesn't lead to kind of like a glib optimism. It's not that, there's nothing glib about it. I think in this life, and we're just barely started on the journey, folks. We get to we're like toddlers, I think, most of the time. And I don't mean that in a derogatory. We're just all so young. We're trying to figure it out. People who are further on the journey can see these ups and downs. And you have friends like this, right? And if you have a hard day, they're not going to say oh, I heard Chuck say divine providence is great. You got nothing to worry about. No, they're going to say life's hard. Our hearts break for you. That's really difficult. What can I do to help? That's the perspective on it all. And we live in a culture sometimes that can have sort of a toxic positivity, and that's not what this is. It is clearly positive and it's clearly inspired. But it's somebody who is able to join us on that journey. As we're in the middle of that flow, they have learned to travel with other people and let the current do what the current does. And there's incredible beauty when we start to see that, friends. And with that, we start to see this, again, as in 2 Corinthians, Therefore we do not lose heart. Even though an outward self is perishing, yet the inward self is being renewed day by day. We see in this transformation, we see certain things going away. We see certain things growing. Jacob, Esau. And it doesn't mean as those certain things go away, it doesn't mean, friends, that as they subside, right, that it's all good. There's certain parts that we let go of that are really hard to let go of because they're really good. They really helped us. They meant a lot. And we just let them go. We have to learn to let them go. That's aging, right? So much as we grow older that we have to learn to let go. But that letting go is creating this beautiful space for something else to be renewed. And when we come back, I'm going to use gravity as a metaphor here and talk about, maybe this is one way to see it and one way to come to have faith that in this journey and in this suite, that God's got it. And maybe, from an eternal perspective, it's all going to be okay.
Hate to see you cry, lying there in that position. There's things you need to hear, so turn off your tears and listen. Pain throws your heart to the ground. Love turns the whole thing around. No, it won't all go the way it should, but I know the heart of life is good. You know it's nothing new. Bad news never had good timing. Then the circle of your friends will defend the silver lining. Pain throws your heart to the ground. Love turns the whole thing around. No, it won't all go the way it should, but I know the heart of life is good. Pain throws your heart to the ground. Love turns the whole thing around. Fear is a friend who's misunderstood, but I know the heart of life is good. I know it's good.
When I was hearing, it's such a beautiful song, I was hearing these two sing at practice before, I just was picturing, oh yeah, nice date night with my wife at a table, a little candlelight, a nice cocktail, listening to that music, oh, it'd be so good. It's a beautiful reminder that the heart of life is good. And we don't pay much attention to that, right? We don't. We don't. We understandably get upset and unsettled when we see things moving in ways that we know are not productive or helpful or loving. We get that. We get that. The heart of life is good. Literally. The heart of life is good because the heart of life is God. And we're not always aware of those forces. We're not always entirely sure like how they work or how it all functions. But I want to share just maybe one way to possibly see this. And this is courtesy of Reverend Jonathan Rose. He's really good at math. I am not. So my apologies for some of the math that I'm going to be talking about here. But it's to try to get across a point about that heart of life is good. And we don't often see it. Because it's so subtle in life, so quiet. So let's take a look at how that might work. So to start out with, friends, it's interesting when you look at gravity. You know, gravity is one of the weakest forces in the universe, which is fascinating. Now, obviously, like I'm saying that in a sense, I should add in a sense. This is the math to it, and this is stuff I don't understand. So gravity is 10 to the 28th times weaker than the strong nuclear force. It's 10 to the 23rd, am I reading that right? Yeah, 10 to the 20 times weaker than electromagnetism. So it's this incredibly weak force. And we can just see that with a magnet, like next picture here. So if I hold up a paper clip and a magnet, and I put the paper clip between the gravity of the Earth and the magnet, who wins? The paper clip's going to get sucked right up into that magnet. That's because it has that kind of power. And you can do any kind of experiment with it, friends. Here's a little magnet here. Here's a little metal screw. It's totally obvious to see that it's not even close. Magnetism is clearly much more powerful than gravity. And we can think of this magnetism in a number of ways. When I used this as a children's talk, I had a bag of M&Ms, right? Peanut M&Ms, of course, like there's any choice. Best candy ever. And of course, there's always just this, if you put a bag of peanut M&Ms right in front of me or reading the Bible over here, I'm going to eat the peanut M&Ms every time. That's the magnetic force. This is what I should do. This is what I want to do. This is always going to win. And it's same with some other things too. It's same with our fears. It's same with anxiety. Just think of fear and anxiety. How much of fear and anxiety just becomes this magnetic force that we can't sort of break our gaze from. Now, are there times where we need to allow that to happen? Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, like with so much of spirituality, it's not either or, it's both and. There are times we need it to happen, but we got to be careful. This is probably a really bad analogy, but what's your magnet? Where do you find yourself constantly being attracted to it, like instantly? This very subtle force, weak force of gravity, no longer matters. It's just right there, right there, right there, right there. It's interesting, friends, because spiritually, there are times for urgency with our spiritual lives, but not that many. I know for many people, that magnetism, it has this sense of urgency, this frenetic bit. We're willing to get all thoughts out of our mind because we just are so attracted over here. But the heart of life is good. The heart of life is not fear. The heart of life is not anxiety, though we clearly will feel those in the moment. They will oftentimes be first and end. But we're in a transformation of life that God is pulling us through to where our life moves from all that to this heart of life that is about good. Humbly is about good. As we look at that transformation, friends, as we look at that shift, this power of gravity, like this is literally the science of it. I was Googling, like, why is gravity so strong? And this is, I didn't change the words. This was off of a scientific thing I was reading. Gravity is strong because it only attracts, never repels. That's some good spiritual principles there. And it works over infinite distances. It works over infinite distances. So this gravity, this force that is so weak, incredibly weak, is so strong, it creates this next picture. The heart of life is good. That is what creates worlds. That is what creates us. It is what creates community. And when we look at that magnetic thing, it's so easy to think, yeah, but the magnet, it's got all the power. Well, which is more powerful, friends? What's more powerful? 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love keeps no record of wrongs. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is gravity. Love is weak, and yet it's the most powerful force in the universe. It literally creates the universe. So, friends, when we ask, is life getting better? I think there's lots of ways to look at it. I think in any given day, there'll be ways it is and there'll be ways it is not. When you look at the story of Jacob and Esau, if we could interview them, did life always get better? They'd clearly say, no, not every day. But maybe we can live this week this way with these words. Is life getting better? Maybe not today, but forever. Maybe not today, but forever. And then we have to ask a question, all right? Now, maybe not today, but forever. I think that is absolutely how it works. And then we have to ask ourselves the question we always need to ask, well, how can we live that then? These truth has to be infused with life. It has to be lived. What does that look like if you went into this week thinking, yeah, life better, maybe not today, but forever? How'd your life be a little different? How'd your perspective change? Oh, so subtly, with the subtleness of gravity. Maybe this. Maybe when we live there, life, maybe not better today, but forever. Maybe we put our arms around both of those and we sit there and we go, you know what this is? This is hope. This is hope. Nothing Pollyannish. It's a realistic hope. It's the hope that changes the world. It's the inspiration that helps us to see things in new, different, and exciting ways, and to maybe just find our place in that beautiful flow of divine providence as we ourselves, with others, join in this journey home. So as you go forward this week, go forward just with that. Maybe not today. Take a breath. Think of gravity. And add to that statement, but forever. Amen. We're going to come in for a gentle landing here, friends. We're going to do a little prayer, the Our Father prayer, and then a little blessing, and then we'll have our final song. So please join me. Lord, thank you for your presence here today. Thank you for what you do with bringing us together week after week. A congregation in many different places, many different phases of life, but maybe just this, Lord, just a tiny little microcosm of life in all its beauty and imperfections. Thank you, Lord, allowing us to come together and help us to join, Lord, as well, broader communities, broader outreach. We're able to bring that idea of a hope-filled message out there into the world that understands that today might not be better, but from the perspective of divine providence, forever always is. Thank you, Lord. Hear our prayer. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you, bring you peace, and bring you home. Amen. Have an amazing week, friends.
There are three things I do when my life falls apart. Number one, I cry my eyes out and dry up my heart. Not until I do this will my new life start. And that's the first thing that I do when my life falls apart. The second thing I do is I close both of my eyes and say my thank yous to each and every moment of my life. I go where I know the love is and let it fill me up inside. Gathering my strength from sorrow, I'm glad to be alive. Things are looking up. I know above the clouds the sun is shining. Things are looking up. I know that love is still the answer. I'm relying on three little things. Oh, 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 The third thing that I do now when my world caves in is I pause, I take a breath and bow, and I let the chapter end. I design my future bright, not by where my life has been. And I try again. Yes, I try again. Things are looking up. I know beyond the dark the sun is rising. Things are looking up. And low above the clouds the sun is shining. Oh, things are looking up. And love is still the answer. I'm relying on three little things.
Thank you, everybody.